Welcome to another fun-filled Monday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss McKee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow Akila McGee on the Twitter and Akila McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, too, you can catch up on our other live shows that we have airing throughout the week. So you happen to miss them, you can go back and listen to them and watch them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, you can follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please find Sports Zone Chicago today on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And speaking of our podcast, Second City Sports, you can subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media PODCASTS Podcast. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And speaking of War Media, why don't you give them a follow? Will you? We'll appreciate it. You can follow War Media at WARR Media on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up in the comments section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But decide to troll and or do something stupid, I've given Lakina full power to give you fools to be a lame beer boot.
Bye-bye.
We might have to give you the Jimmy Butler boot. We'll discuss that more later. But before we begin, we want to remind you that you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV. That's right. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku TV, you have some handheld devices laying around, your iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your personal PC, your Chromebook like I'm using. Just go to the Google Play Store, download the Roku TV app, and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV.
Anytime, anywhere you like.
And you know we will provide. All right, Lakina, let's get this latest Monday edition of Second City Sports started by discussing our local baseball teams, the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs. Mixed results from our teams over the weekend. We'll start off with my Southsiders first. The White Sox are winners of 5 out of their last 6 games, and they were all played on the South Side, beating Cleveland 2 out of 3 last week and sweeping away those pesky Kansas City Royals over the weekend. The White Sox scored a total of 10 runs in those 12 runs in those 3-game series. Hit 2 home runs. Lakina, we said this last year. I saw it over the weekend during the last 2 games of that series. It was all about the starting pitching for the Chicago White Sox in this series. They got timely hitting from rookie Romy Gonzalez. Jake Berger came up big as well. Luis Robert Jr. hit another home run yesterday, a.k.a. La Pantera. Ever since the incident he had against Tampa Bay a few weeks ago, he has started to turn it around. He's been the best player on the White Sox for the month of May, in particular in all of baseball. Shout out to you, Brandon Schultz, on the comments. I know you're talking about the Astros. We'll get to them coming up in a few minutes. But as far as going back to the White Sox are concerned, outside of 2 years ago when they won the division, they won the majority of the games against their divisional foes. We're talking about Minnesota, Cleveland, Detroit, Kansas City. This is a huge stretch for the White Sox, as many experts pinned them as playoff contenders. This was the quote unquote easy part of their schedule. After the Houston series, dropping 3 or 4 in Kansas City a couple of weeks ago, the White Sox have turned it around. As I mentioned, they won 5 out of the last 6 games, all at home. Even though Cleveland Guardians are down right now, well, with a couple of guys that are out, including Jose Ramirez and Tristan McKenzie, the Cy Young candidate ace pitcher from a year ago, the White Sox took advantage of that. And we all know about this White Sox team. When you hit home runs, they usually win. Jake Berger and Gavin Sheets led that charge in that series. And this last past series against the Kansas City Royals it was their starting pitching. Lance Lynn did the job yesterday in 6 straight innings pitched. Michael Kopech had a season-high 10 strikeouts on Friday, facing the minimal batters of 27 from Kansas City as the Sox won the opener 2-0. Saturday, Lucas Giolito got out of a bases-loaded jam early in the game. He gave up a solo home run to Salvador Perez in that opening inning on Saturday, but after that, he cruised on, which helped the Sox to the victory. As I mentioned, some of the role players got timely hits like Romy Gonzalez, Jake Berger, Andrew Benintendi, one-time Kansas City Royal. He had an insurance RBI run yesterday, which helped the Sox to a 5-2 victory to complete the sweep. Also, too, you got to talk about the White Sox bullpen. Aaron Bummer, he pitched well yesterday. Joe Kelly came in and actually earned a save yesterday. Looks like the White Sox bullpen is starting to turn it around. And Liam Hendricks, Lakina, I know he may make his debut tonight in Cleveland. We'll have to see about that. We have any news about that before we get off the air today. We'll pass that along to you. But it seems like the White Sox still have a long way to go. They're still 10 games under 500, but you're starting to see the signs that this team is supposed to perform like they were expected to early on in the year.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this short and sweet. And sorry for the blinking earlier, folks, but I'm gonna do this, and as I was about to talk. Bravo! You beat. Look. You proved that you're just a little bit better than than the Royals, which is they're in last place of your division. You did what you're supposed to do. Okay, yeah. Look, you had a solid start from Lance Lynn. You had a nice start from Dylan Cease. Okay, look. You know what? All right, you won 3 in a row. Let's see if we can do this. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm not at that point where I'm like, okay, can they win 9 or 10 in a row and such to get back in it? I'm not gonna say that, but because you saw that they took a couple of steps forward and a couple of steps back. So wake me when they actually win 10 in a row and they're back over 500, which, could they do it? Sure, but I don't think they can. I mean, yes, everyone's starting to heat up. Yeah, Makata's been really solid. Robert's been very solid. Robert Jr. has been very solid, but I'm not there yet. I'm sorry. So, I'm sorry. I'm just not there where they can catch up and win. Like, I know Minnesota had a, not so good weekend against the Angels. We'll get to them in a second, but I'm just not there yet. I'm sorry. I'm just not there with the White Sox yet. I'm sorry. You're still. Well, let me finish. But okay. You're just you're still too many games under 500. You're still about 7 out in the division. So you're not gonna get any of the wild card spots. You got the AL East will probably have all that unlocked. So you're not gonna be able to get a wild card spot. You got to win your division. So okay, yeah, you swept the Royals. Good for you, but I'm not there yet. I'm sorry.
But you got to start somewhere, Lakina. And this team, the way they're performing right now, I'm not saying they're going to win the whole thing. I'm not going meatball on you, but you got to start somewhere. As we said last year, that starting pitching kept them in the race. It looks like that starting pitching is starting to turn around now. You wasn't impressed by Michael Kopech's performance on Friday, and look what Lucas Giolito did on Saturday. Look what Lance Lynn did yesterday.
No, I mentioned that. Look, I mean, okay, yeah, good. You did against the worst team in your division. Okay, yippee. Maybe look, do that against the Rays, do that against the Yankees, do that against Texas. And then look, then we'll talk. Look, it just shows you how bad that division is. So, like I said, I'm not okay. You swept the Royals, good for you, but I'm sorry. Like you still got a long ways to go before you prove to me that you can get back up there in the AL Central race.
Okay, that's fair. And like you said, their schedule in the month of June, talking about the White Sox, will get tougher. And we'll talk about it as the days and weeks go along. We'll move along now to the north side as the Chicago Cubs lose 2 out of 3 to the Philadelphia Phillies. They won the series opener last Friday, 10-1. But Lakina, the Philadelphia Phillies won almost in last-minute fashion yesterday in the series finale. They select the Cubs starting pitcher in their bullpen on Saturday, scoring 10 runs. Lakina, we talked about it all year. The Cubs are carried by their starting pitching in their defense. Their starting pitching started to break over the weekend, in particular on Saturday. The bullpen's been trouble all year. It really got exposed the last 2 days in that series against Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, look, they had their chance. They still have about 8 or 9 guys on base, so they had their chances to win that game yesterday and take that series, but they were able to get anybody across. I know Christopher Morel is still breaking records. I think he had one where I think he's like the first Cubs hitter to have 3 or 4 home runs, the first 5 or 6 games or whatever that was. I thought I saw a stat from Marquis yesterday. So, I mean, he's been one of the few bright spots. Him and Merver's been pretty solid too this series. But like you said, I mean, Azalea, I mean, I actually was watching a little bit of that. I was turning back and forth between that, the Sox game, the PGA Championship. We'll get to that later
Mhm.
on. But, Azalea, he gave up some hits, and unfortunately they were just not good. And Stott was able to get that 2-run home run that kind of broke the game open. And Morel tried to did what he could, but he just couldn't do anything. Like I know they've had a lot of roster moves. They were King Thompson got sent down, a couple other guys got
Mhm.
sent down. Eric Hosmer got DFA, so you wonder, well, how that will help. But you're still having some issues with that bullpen. And so still had a solid start yesterday too. He had 6 strikeouts, only had 4 hits, no earned run. So, it's just that I know there are some folks that say that maybe David Ross should probably be, maybe he should be gone too. But I'm just, yeah, it's just frustrating because I think the Cubs should be a little bit closer than when they are. But I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh my God, this has been disappointing. You're in the tough part of the division, and people forget the Phillies. Yes, they haven't had a good start this year, but they actually were in the World Series, so that's a
Yeah.
pretty decent team. So I think people need to kind of just, Cub fans need to kind of just take a step back on that. But I'm hoping they can figure it out. I mean, they can get out of this rut sooner or later, I hope. But it's they're 20 and 26, which I think, let's be honest, I don't know a lot of Cubs fans thought that they would be even at that point. So I think they're
Mhm.
already past expectations. They got a tough one coming up tomorrow. I guess the Mets, they've been up and down, so they could perhaps maybe get a couple of games. Maybe a little bit of home cooking will help, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just a little, I'm just a little bit, a little bit unnerved right now. But again, look, they've had a
Mhm.
tough part of their schedule. Like I said, they, the last 2 World Series participants, from last year, we went 1-6. That's went a 5, I should say. That's not good, but but what can you do?
Yeah, like I said, that road trip was not the best showing for the Cubs. So, granted that, but they were except for the game on Saturday. I think it was another game as well in that road trip. The Cubs were in most of those games, especially in that
Mm-hmm.
series against Houston. They could have won 2 out of those 3 games, perhaps all 3, but definitely 2 out of those 3
Mm-hmm.
games against Houston. They could have won. So this is not a bad team. Now, are they going through a rough stretch? Absolutely, but they're not a bad team. Last year's
No.
team was a bad team,
Ugh.
which they played over their heads because there was no expectations. But I believe that Cubs manager David Ross has a roster that he can go compete with now. As you mentioned, they made all those moves in the last 24, 48 hours with Eric Hosmer being DFA, which we all expected. And James Wisniewski, the 5th starter who made it out of spring training. He's in the minor leagues right now. Kyle Hendricks is supposed to make his debut, I assume, later this week. He's been in the minor
Yeah.
leagues on a rehab assignment. So it looks like things are starting to come together for the Cubs, but they need to fix their bullpen. But one of the few bright spots that you can say about the Cubs, outside of Christopher Morel, Seiya Suzuki, he threw out a runner at third base yesterday. So his defense is starting to
Yeah.
come up along with his bat. Also, too, their offense has been on fire lately.
Yep.
So we talked about it coming to the season, Lakina, as this Cubs team is built on defense and pitching. Their offense is starting to turn it around.
Yeah, and I
So
think
you cannot blame it on the offense. The offense has actually been okay, maybe slightly above average, but above people's expectations. But offense hasn't been a problem. It's been their bullpen has
the
been a problem.
pitching. Oh yeah, that bullpen. Yeah, just imagine their bullpen. They actually had a good, decent middle reliever in a bullpen. They probably would be
Mhm.
like up there in the central right now. So yeah, but look, I think considering where they were supposed to be, I think they can still get into the division, make it interesting. I know the we'll talk about the rest of MLB after the break, but I know the Cardinals have been have been heating up. They took what I think 3 out of 4 from the Dodgers
Mhm.
and stuff, but they're still, and Pittsburgh's been hanging on too, but they're starting to fade a little bit. And I know Milwaukee's been up and down too. So yeah, it's there for the ticket, I think, for the Cubs. So we'll see. But yeah, I think, look, considering where the people thought they were going to be, this season, you got to be feeling pretty good if you're a Cubs fan right now. Yeah, is this a good stretch? No, but considering everything else, you got to be feeling okay if you're a Cubs fan right now.
Yeah, and like we said about the NL Central, Milwaukee, we'll discuss them after the break, but they're not going to run away with this NL Central. St. Louis looks like they're starting to turn it around. In Pittsburgh, they're going back to downward spiral, the downward spiral they've been experiencing all this month of May. So, as long as the Cubs can continue just to win series, they're
Hmm.
going to be in this thing.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
are. Like I said, they're going through tough stretches. They're going to be in this thing. As long as they play at slightly above 500, they're going to be in this thing. Because I don't think no one's going to run away with this NL Central title.
Oh no, I don't think so either. Yeah, I don't look. Look where I think everything else is starting to fall into place. They just need to get that bullpen. If they can just get that bullpen together, they'll be. They could be right there. So we'll see what happens. All right, we're gonna take a really quick break. We'll talk about all the rest of baseball, and looks like the Yankees might be knocking on the door, with the Rays a little bit, saying hi. Of course, the Cardinals take 3 out of 4 from the Dodgers, and a whole lot more still. Keenan McGee, Cindy Brown coming up next to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. More baseball talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Oh, sorry. Welcome back to Second City Sports on the Monday edition, right here, live and in living color on Sports Zone Chicago. That's Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Let's Go again, the IG.
We have 85 minutes left or so in this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Makina will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so what caught your eye in Major League Baseball this week?
You spoke about them. We mentioned them before the break, but the New York Yankees look like they're starting to catch fire. They had a successful road trip, taking 3 out of 4 in Toronto last week, and they swept the pesky Cincinnati Reds. The New York Yankees are 10-3 in their last 13 games, averaging 6.1 runs per game. Like we mentioned last week, it looks like Aaron Judge is starting to turn things around. Looks like the other role players are starting to take his lead, but they just need to get that starting pitcher together. And looks like that you start to see some of those signs of this past weekend against Cincinnati on the road.
Yeah, it's interesting that both Aaron Boone and David Bell got ejected in that game yesterday. But look, that was probably the most entertaining part about that. But look, you get out of there with a sweep, and then you're still right there. I mean, look, you're about 5.5 out, but I don't think the Rays are they're starting to struggle a little bit, so they're not going to run away with this division. So everybody is in it, even the Red Sox. We'll talk about the Orioles in a second, and what they've been up to. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this AL East goes, because you look at Baltimore for one. We talked about Baltimore the last few weeks. They swept Toronto over the weekend, and including a really tough game yesterday. There was no scoring until later on in that inning, but. Look, they've got guys, who can. Look, we talk about Cedric Mullins. He's kind of like I say, he's sort of like that guy that's probably, I'm not gonna say he's the front runner for AL MVP. I think there's another guy in Anaheim that might have something to say about that. But him and Austin Hayes and a few others. I mean, they've been the reasons why that they needed beef with their pitching a little bit, but I think they could definitely challenge the Rays, and I think we'll see if they make any moves. Should they still be up here by the time the trade deadline comes up.
Yeah, I want to speak on Baltimore in just a minute. I got a chance to catch some of the highlights after I got home from the White Sox game yesterday. And I mentioned, too, about their starting pitcher, which was one of their Achilles' heel a year ago. Dean Kremer, who didn't get the win yesterday because the game went into extra innings. But he had 7 strikeouts in 5 1/3 innings for Baltimore. And that's what you need out of your starters for Baltimore. Because as I mentioned before, they had the offensive talent to do it. You mentioned Cedric Mullins. He had 5 hits yesterday, which sparked that 8-3 win in the 10th inning. Also you have Adley Rutschman, Anthony Santander, and Gunnar Henderson at third base. Adley Rutschman, the catcher. So the Baltimore has to offer a key match with the defense that started pitcher, and so far they have done that. As you mentioned, they swept Toronto over the weekend. I'm worried more about Toronto. You lose 3-0. All this was at home last week. You lost 3-4 to Yankees, and you get swept by a very good Baltimore club. I'm more worried about. I know you talk about Tampa. I know we'll get to them in a sec, but I'm worried more about Toronto than Tampa. At least Tampa, with that hot start, you knew they were going to struggle, but they have a little bit of a cushion. But Toronto doesn't have much of that right now.
Yeah, and John Schneider, I mean, he's been acting very off lately. So you wonder,
you don't say.
What's going on there in Toronto? But again, we'll see what happens. I'm sure they'll right the ship. That team's too good. For them not to right the ship, so we'll see what happens now. The Cubs' next opponent, the Mets, they've won 7 in a row, including 3 out of 4 because one of the games was postponed, but they did sweep the Guardians. I know that made Sid happy and Sox fans happy, but
for the time being, yay.
yeah. I mean, look, Joseph Verlander outdueled Shane Beamer in that solid in the rubber match of that series yesterday. 2-1. There was a doubleheader sweep. But yeah, I think Pete Alonso's been looking really good lately. Francisco Lindor and Beamer got into it, so that was a little bit funny, but that was actually pretty hilarious. But yeah, they're kind of getting hot at the right time. We're talking about the Mets, so we'll see. But yeah, I think the Mets look pretty good. I mean, like I said, we'll see. I mean, we know how the Mets are. They can get really hot, and then they sink for a few. So we'll see. I want to see if they can keep this up, but so far so good for the Mets.
Yeah, those amazing Mets need to turn their season around. Shout out to our guy Brandon Schutz. I know he's down there in Texas. The Astros swept away the Oakland A's yesterday. And all those games were close games. I know Friday's game was a 5-1 winner for the Astros. I know Jose Altuve, their shortstop, made his debut last Friday, but it was all about his starting pitching. The last 2 games of that series, it looks like Houston is starting to take off, but those Texas Rangers they're going to be hurt from if they stay healthy. I know they have a couple of injuries right now, in particular their starter Jacob deGrom, but Houston did look good over the weekend. That's what you're supposed to do against a bad team in Oakland. On the flip side, the Texas Rangers, they sweep away Colorado, but those bats for Texas have been hot all year long.
Absolutely. So we'll see if Texas can keep up with it. I know they made some moves, other than the they made to make some moves. So we'll see what happens with that. Atlanta took 2 out of 3 from Seattle. I mean, they were at home, so you kind of figured that was going to happen. But like I said, Atlanta, they got the Mets. They got a little bit of a cushion right now. They're 5 games up still. But again, we'll see what happens with them. I mean, I think the Braves are starting to kind of. They I don't want to say they've been kind of like coasting, but I think like they won 2 out of 3 against the Mariners. They won 2 out of 3 against the Rangers. They've been consistent, this week. So we'll see if they can keep it up. But it's like I said, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, the bats. I mean, they did. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, Jared Schuster, they only allowed 1 hit yesterday for the Braves in that rubber match. So. We'll see if they can keep it up, and also some of the pitches have actually been pretty solid for the Braves, so we'll see if they can keep it up.
Okay, breaking news right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. According to the Chicago White Sox, of course, thank you. We forgot to mention this in the last half hour. We were discussing the White Sox and the Cubs. Forgot to mention, we'll mention it now. Sox starting pitcher Mike Clevenger is on the 15-day injured list. Prior to tonight's series opener at Cleveland, the White Sox recalled right-handed pitcher Jesse Schultz from Class AAA Charlotte, and he takes the spot of Mike Clevenger, as I mentioned, who was on the injured list. Retroactive to May 18th with a right wrist inflammation. So I thought Liam Hendricks was going to replace Clevenger on the roster. It looks like that's not going to happen. Well, could Hendricks still make his debut tonight in Cleveland? I don't know, but it looks like he's still going to get his work in. If Hendricks doesn't make his debut on this road trip, because the White Sox start their road trip tonight in Cleveland, then Thursday through next Sunday they'll be in Detroit. If Hendricks doesn't make his debut on the road, he'll make his debut next Monday night at home against the Anaheim Angels if everything goes well.
All right, we'll see. All right, we'll see. I mean, Hendricks has been incredible through all this, so we'll see if he can make his debut. And like I said, we'll see. I mean, the Clevenger, I saw in that last start, I mean, you could tell his wrist was bothering him, so not surprised that he ended up in the IL. So we'll see what happens with that. Now going to Milwaukee for a second, they lose 2 out of 3 to the Rays, and they start. You don't want to say that they're kind of like after losing 2 out of 3 to the Cardinals. You wonder, like, are they starting to kind of fall off a little bit? So I think for me with the Brewers, like I said, no one's going to run away with this division yet. Yes, even if St. Louis does come back, and we'll get to St. Louis in a second, but no one's going to run away with this division. So I think the Cubs do have a shot to kind of like make things interesting in that division. It's all about inconsistency, and the inconsistency for the Brewers has been sometimes they're hitting and such. So it's going to be. Yeah, it's going to get a little bit tight there. Now, they did win, avoid getting swept in Tampa, which is where that's only their 4th loss. The Rays is 4th loss at home this year, but to stop the bleeding. But yeah, I'm not sold on the Brewers yet either. So like, I think it's really going to be a survival of the fittest in the NL Central.
Yes, Milwaukee almost reminds me of the White Sox a little bit. You're inconsistent at times on offense, even though the White Sox have the better talent on paper, but the Brewers are inconsistent at times on offense. They have the pitching, especially the starting pitching with Brandon Woodruff and Peralta, but their offense is a hit and miss at times, and that could come back to bite you, especially during the crucial times of the season. So, like you said, if this inconsistent offense continues, like you said, the Cubs and the Cardinals, who's starting to make a move right now, they have a realistic shot in winning this NL Central.
Speaking of the Cardinals, like I said, they went 3 out of 4 against the Dodgers. I mean, I know Contreras is starting to heat up a little bit after being a doghouse initially. Look, they got the young guys to kind of do it, but like I said, I'm not sold on the Cardinals just yet. I mean, we'll see. I think they the reason why they think they're still in it is because the division is not very good, the NL Central. So it is what it is with that. But again, I like what I've been seeing from them. So we'll see what happens. But it's just a little tough.
Yeah, and 3 of their 4 wins against the Dodgers, they scored 10 runs or more in each. And as we mentioned on our last show on Friday, which the day before the 4-game series got started last Thursday night, Wilson Contreras' bat has been heating up big. I know he's not the everyday catcher anymore, but I know many people questioned that moving him out of the starting catcher's world, but however it happened, it looks like his back woke up and he hasn't stopped since.
Right. Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if the Cardinals can keep up this race. But now, as we're kind of closing before we get to the schedule, I think it's going to be interesting, especially with the rest of baseball and everything else. And looking at the divisional standings real quick, I mean. It's going to get a little bit interesting. I know that the Diamondbacks, I know they won 2 out of 3 against the Pirates, who are starting to kind of they're definitely falling off there. But I don't think they're going to keep up. I just don't think they will. But we'll see. But yeah, I think look, no one's going to run away with their respective divisions just yet. So and if you're baseball, you gotta feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I know many people want a parity in baseball, and you're getting it now, especially with the extra wild card spots. So, and it keeps more teams and more cities interested. And so, as we talked about with our 2 Chicago baseball teams, and long as they stay at slightly above 500, they have a chance to make the playoffs. But outside of Tampa Bay's really hot start, really no one's really dominated baseball, like that, to so far this season. So, like I said, it's a long way to go. Like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And you have to have good luck, not too many bad injuries, and you got to have other players step up. And so like you say, we'll see what happens. I just want to have one quick note, Lakina, before we move on to the scheduling. I did watch that game yesterday between Minnesota and Anaheim. You mentioned the other candidate, a possible candidate for AL MVP. That was Shohei Ohtani. Yesterday in 6 innings pitched, he struck out 9 Twins hitters. Do I still believe in the Anaheim Angels? I don't know. I know they play the White Sox here in Chicago starting next Monday on Memorial Day. But am I still believing in them? I don't know. But Shohei Ohtani is a really great player. He's a very good pitcher. And no, not too many people talked about this, but remember he had Tommy John surgery a few years ago? It looks like he was better than when he did when he first came into the league.
Yeah,
about 6 years ago or so.
Yeah, that's crazy how that works. But yeah, like you said, we'll see. We'll see about all that. I mean, I think it's gonna be interesting if the Angels keep it up, if Ohtani can keep up what he's doing. So yeah, it's gonna get very interesting, no doubt about it. Now going into the schedule, starting today, Monday, for those who are gonna be listening to this, the playback here on War Media. You got, of course, the Sox and the Guardians. The first game of their series starts at 5:10, so an early start for that.
Yeah, Jimmy Lambert will get the start for the White Sox in place of Clemenger.
Yeah, against Hunter Gaddis, so that should be interesting. Texas and Pittsburgh, they start their series. We'll see if Pittsburgh can stop the bleeding. Arizona and Philadelphia, St. Louis and Cincy. All right, Toronto, they got to get going here after being swept. So, by Baltimore, so they get another shot at an AL East rival, this time against Tampa. That should be a fun one. Starting their series. And you got the Dodgers and the Braves. That should be a fun series. As the Dodgers continue the East Coast trip. And Detroit and Kansas City start their series.
All right, other series starting tonight and tomorrow. Detroit at Kansas City. The Houston Astros at Milwaukee to take on the Brewers. The San Francisco Giants facing the Minnesota Twins. That's the Monday night game on FS1 tonight at 6:40 p.m. Central Standard Time. Other series starting tonight. The Miami Marlins, who lost 2 out of 3 at San Francisco, they continue their West Coast road trip. They are at Colorado tonight. Also, you had the Boston Red Sox continuing their West Coast road trip. They'll take on the Anaheim Angels. Of course, Boston won 2 out of 3 at San Diego over the weekend. The San Diego Padres, outside the White Sox, have been one of the most disappointing teams in MLB this year. Yes. And Oakland will take on your Seattle Mariners. That's tonight's schedule. Now, other series that are starting tomorrow, Tuesday, as goes. The New York Mets will travel here to Chicago to take on the Chicago Cubs. And we will have the other series. Baltimore will travel to New York to take on the big bad Yankees. And San Diego will travel to our nation's capital to face the Washington Nationals.
That should be a fun series. So we'll see what happens with that. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports in Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Now let's start with our playoff talk. We probably can only do like maybe one conference final, and then we'll do the other after the break. But we'll do the one that just ended last night. You have the Heat taking a 3-0 lead over the Celtics.
Oh, you saying it's over already?
Well, no, I'm not saying. Look, I'm not saying that, but it's just like, ooh, boy. And like I said, we'll get to all the comments and stuff in a second. But just not good effort by the Celtics, I should say. The Heat was just, and it wasn't just Jimmy Butler. Of course, we know Jimmy Butler's been doing his thing, but he only had 16 points. It was Gabe Vincent who had a playoff career high 29. Then you had Duncan Robinson who had 22 off the bench for them. So it was a total team effort there, and not outside of Jimmy and Bam. So I'm just like flabbergasted at this right now, but just to get games like hammering all over the place. They dominated from the inside and outside. I'm talking about the Heat and Boston, I guess, basically just gave up. I mean, I think both Tatum and Brown were benched. I think all the starting five were benched for the Celtics in those last like 8 minutes. It really wasn't the game after the first quarter. The Heat were only up 8. It wasn't until the second quarter like things started like kind of chiseling out. It wasn't until the third quarter where the Heat outscored the Celtics 32-17. That was basically it.
We mentioned throughout this whole playoff run, Lakina, the Miami Heat, they were one of the worst three-point shooting teams percentage-wise in the league throughout the regular season. They have picked it up in the playoffs. They shot 54% from three last night, 56% overall for the game. On the flip side, Boston, as you mentioned, they weren't aggressive enough to me driving the ball to the basket. They settled for jump shots way too much. They barely shot 39%, 26 from three. And that's not going to get it done. Like you mentioned, Jason Tatum only had 14 points. Your next highest scorer was Jaylen Brown with 12. But after that, Al Horford 8, Marcus Smart with 8, Derek White with 9. That's just not going to get it done. You had better production from your bench. I know some of that came in garbage time, but your starting five they just did not have the energy last night. And I know people want to put some of this blame on the new head coach, Joe Mazzulla. Does he deserve some of the blame? Yes. Because I think he fails to make adjustments because they haven't stopped Jimmy Butler and they really mostly haven't stopped the role players from the Miami Heat. You mentioned Gabe Vincent had a great game last night. Duncan Robinson finally scored over 10 points in the playoff game. So, and Lakina, what did we talk about coming into the series? I said my couple of keys were offensive rebounding, which the Celtics have dominated in statistically. But the Heat have been more proactive with their outside shooting more so. And I said the other key was points in the paint. Even though the Celtics have a slight advantage in this series in terms of statistics, the Miami Heat has really set the tone for points in the paint as well.
Right. It's just, it's a little bit insane. They're the first 8 seed ever to win a playoff game by more than 25 points, as the season, of course, began in 84. They also could join a list of 2 teams that who ranked last in points per game during the regular season and have reached the NBA Finals. They would join the 1964 Warriors and the 1956 Pistons. So we'll see if they join that group tomorrow. But I think for me, if you're the Heat, you want to try to wrap it up tomorrow. You don't want to give Boston any hope. As Jimmy Johnson, said, when he was coaching the U, he said when they were playing Notre Dame, the first time, they said, pour it on them and don't let them up. And I'm sure. Look, I think Eric Spoelstra is, showing folks that he wasn't just so happens that he had LeBron and Wade and Bosh. He actually is a pretty good coach, and he actually is. If I can get the stat up here, he is leading a series 3-0 for the 7th time in his coaching career. That is the 5th most by a head coach in NBA history. So I think for me, I think this whole thing with the Heat is, I think the fact that they've been doing this after, come from the play-in after what happened, in that first play-in against Atlanta, that they could have been eliminated by the Bulls. And it was just like one of those things where you're kind of like, okay, this team's actually pretty solid. I know Tyler Hero being hurt. There was rumors that should the Heat advance, he might come back, for the NBA Finals. We'll see about that. But I just think that, look, it's not just Butler, it's not just Bam. They're getting the supporting cast is getting involved, which is what you want. I mean, Caleb Martin had 18 off the bench. He was the Mountain West. I remember him being the Mountain West Conference Player of the Year when he was at Nevada. And it's interesting that he kind of kept grinding out, and that was his first. This is his first actual play this year. He had been coming from ACL surgery, so it's definitely a team effort. It's not just Jimmy Butler. I think hopefully this will prove that it's not just Butler and the rest of them. It's actually a total team effort.
As we've said before in this program, we'll say it again. Heat head coach Eric Spoelstra, you got to give him a whole lot of credit, and they're one of the best defensive coach teams in the league. As we talked about with our guest, Mateo Mayorga from 5 Reasons Sports on our last episode last Friday, their defense, especially against that high screening role that Boston has been running throughout the whole playoffs, the Heat's team defense has been excellent. And it's not just Jimmy Butler, like you say, it's Bam. And it's Kevin Love. We know that at his age, I'm talking about Kevin Love, that he doesn't have much to give in terms of playing 28, 30 minutes. That's just not him anymore. But he's doing the intangibles, just like everyone else in the supporting cast. He's doing the little things, diving for loose balls, getting that key rebound, having that key assist, hitting that open shot, hitting the open man. And the Miami Heat, almost like those old Spurs teams from back in the day, were doing. And that's why they were winning championships. It's doing the little things right and being precise. And then the Miami Heat are a very well coached team. And of course, you have to give Eric Spoelstra a whole lot of credit for that.
Absolutely. So, like I said, we'll see. I mean, look, we'll get to the rest of the stuff after the break, but it just it's just maybe we could get into it, but yeah, I mean, it is amazing what the Heat is doing. Like I said, considering like all the circumstances, all the injuries and such. I mean, there are some people said that maybe Bam should have gotten traded after the trade, during the trade deadline and whatnot, but I think the fact that they're together and that they're actually been playing this well against some of the top teams. I mean, they knocked out the number 1 seed in Milwaukee. They knocked out, they dominated the Knicks. So I think no one should really be surprised. I know our girl Lana Tech, we gotta get her back on the show at some point. I know she's excited. I think you ask a lot of Heat fans, they're even shocked at what they're seeing right now. So hopefully they can keep it up. And look, like I said, we'll see. I mean, I think this is going to be very interesting, especially since Bam and and Jimmy, they've had a taste of the final. So I think they want to get, especially since it's going to be like the 4 teams that face each other in the bubble. So it should be interesting. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what happens. We'll see if Boston has some fight left. I mean, I think Tatum acted well. I think it was Brown who had he wanted to go home. So. I think a lot of it is to blame here. I think it's not just Joe Mazzola, it's not just Brown and Tatum. I think it's everybody. There's a lot of blame to go around, and they quit. And look, Magic Johnson's calling them out, and a lot of Boston fans actually agree with him. Fans are agreeing with Magic, so that's not a good thing if you're a Celtics fan if you're agreeing with Magic, but. We'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting though tomorrow.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask you this before we close out our number 1. If you're head coach Joe Mazzulla for the Boston Celtics, what can you do at this point? You're down 3-0. Yes, the pressure is on Miami to sweep you guys from the playoffs. The pressure is going to be on Miami because they're at home and everybody wants to party and go to the finals. But if you're Joe Mazzulla, what can you do if you're the Boston Celtics? What motivational tactic can you use? I don't know what if I was in his shoes, I wouldn't know what to do. You can tell, go out and play hard, win one for the team, win one for the franchise, and win one for pride. But outside of that, what can you do at this point? You can't stop Jimmy Butler. You're getting eaten up inside, even though you lead statistically. But the Miami Heat has imposed their will on you. What can you do at this point?
Just hope Tatum or Brown get hot. I mean, maybe Al Horford will find a fountain of youth and look like the Horford from the early years. I mean, I don't think there's nothing else you can say at this point. I mean, I don't know. Look, I think if you're the Heat, you're at home, you want to put the series away and get you a little bit of rest going into the finals. You get about a week off, so like I said, it'll be interesting. But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, this is going to be very interesting. But yeah, I think the Heat, they're in a good position. But if you're the Heat, I think you will want to. Well, the pressure on them, but yeah, I think the Celtics, for pride. I think Celtic pride, as they say, I think they're not going to want to get swept. So we'll see which Celtics teams show up tomorrow. But again, we'll wait and see. But yeah, it's going to get interesting.
Yeah, our number 1 in the books. Our number 2 straight ahead as you listen to the Monday edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We still have the West Conference Finals, Game 3 to review. We may be throwing dirt on that series as well. Plus, we'll get into our tributes to the passing of the football great, the late Jim Brown. Carmelo Anthony has retired. We'll get into the Stanley Cup Playoffs, and we'll have Old School TV Monday and a whole lot more. I'm Sid the Kid. That's Lakina McGee. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
I'm scared.
Do you know that you're in my lane?
No, not at all.
Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid the Kid, which is me. That's Lakina McGee, which is she. You can follow yours truly on Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Kim McGee on the Twitter and at Kim McGee on the IG.
And we have less than 57 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. So if you have any questions or comments, you can go to the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. As I mentioned before, the break. Oh, and a daily reminder, you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV. Now, before the break, Lakina, I suggested that we could throw dirt on the Western Conference Finals series between the Denver Nuggets and the Los Angeles Lakers. The Denver Nuggets have survived Game 3 after a horrible shooting second half. They defeated the Los Angeles Lakers on the road in Game 3, 119-108, to take a commanding 3-0 lead in that best-of-7 series.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this was probably Lakers' best shot at getting the game. So the fact that they were able to hang on, Murray, hot shooting continues, and Jokic, hot shooting too. I mean, look, it's just like maybe they were over. Maybe the Lakers are overmatched. Maybe, I don't know, but they're 0-8 when they're down 0-3 in playoff series. I think Kobe got swept twice in a couple of finals. I know Magic got swept in that last. Well, not the last final, but in that final against Detroit, they're the first back-to-back for Detroit. I know. Yeah. So some of the others, that. Not a good record if you're the Lakers, in playoffs, being down 0-3. But I mean, look, it's just, what can you do at this point? I mean, if you're the Lakers, try to get a little bit of effort. I mean, AD goes, as the Lakers, offense goes. I know that LeBron, had 23 points, but AD had 28. But And I know Austin Reeves did what he could. He was 3 for 5 from 3. He had 23, but D'Angelo Russell, struggled from the field. Jared Vanderbilt, I think you may have to change the starting lineup there. Get him out of the lineup. Maybe put a Hakamura there. He had 13. I'm talking about Hakamura had 13. Vanderbilt's not doing anything. So you may have to make some changes tonight. Change a little bit of that scheduling. So yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna say it's out of the question because they haven't won that fourth game yet, but I'm sure LeBron wants to kind of have that pride thing and maybe perhaps try to win this game tonight. But look, I'm not going to sit here and say that they don't have a shot, but it's not looking good for them.
Yeah, you mentioned Hachimura. He's been the Lakers' second best player in this series, next to Anthony Davis. Now, I know it's popular for people to hate on Anthony Davis, but he has not been the problem for the Lakers in this series. I know he had a big monster game in Game 1, scoring 40 points, but Anthony Davis has not been a problem in this series. He hasn't. The Lakers defensively just don't have an answer, not just for Jokic, but they don't have an answer for Jamal Murray. And you saw that on Saturday night in Game 3. Jamal Murray, he struggled just like the rest of the Denver Nuggets did shooting in that third quarter. But just like in Game 2, Jamal Murray woke up in the fourth quarter and carried the day for the Denver Nuggets. And it's interesting. I'll get back to the Lakers side of things in just a moment. But we talked about this on Friday with our guest, looking it's interesting to me that the Denver is doing all this, and Aaron Gordon has not showed up in one game in this series. He only had 7 points in Game 3 last Saturday night.
No, I mean, I think, look, I mean, they haven't really. He's been kind of up and down all season, so it's really not that shocking that they would, be doing all this without Aaron Gordon shooting. But now, should they, advance to the finals against Miami? I know everybody wants to give Denver the title there, but I would implore folks that the Heat have been underestimated all year. So, and they haven't played a defense like the Heat. So I think people need to kind of just slow down on that. And good luck with the ratings too, by the way, ABC, if it doesn't be the case, but. Look, I think that look, I think it's been like everybody. I know Murray. We know how good Murray is. We know how good Jokic is. Jokic has another record for Jokic. I guess he's the second player with 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, 800 assists in a single season, including the regular season and the playoffs. He joins the Big O, who did it in 1961 and 62, and also it's the 27th time the Celtics and the Lakers have each made the conference and / division finals in the same season. It's just the second time that they trailed in those series. We got to go all the way back to the 50s where the Celtics, the then Syracuse Nationals were now Philadelphia, the 76ers, and of course the Minneapolis Lakers, lost to the Fort Wayne Pistons. I think they lost them in 6, but it's like I said, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, look, I think Denver's just too good shooting. I mean, you hope that maybe LeBron has like a 40-point in him tonight. And I know AD's got to step up, and some of the other guys got to step up too. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, can the other guys step up? Can Hachimura, Reeves, D'Angelo has to have a better game too than he had on Saturday. So I don't know. I mean, what else can you say at this point?
Yeah, getting back to the Lakers side of things, I'm glad you brought up D'Angelo Russell. And he's very good as a point guard coming off a pick and roll. But when teams let him stand out there and shoot outside, I believe it was Game 3 when he had that hot start against the Warriors. D'Angelo Russell has been up and down, to say the least, during these playoffs. We all know that D'Angelo Russell is not a shooter. You mentioned Austin Reeves has done all he could, but we all know that this Lakers team overall is not a great shooting team. They're not a great three-point shooting team. And LeBron James, I love him too, but stop taking three-point shots in the fourth quarter. You haven't made not one three-point shot in the fourth quarter in this series. I know why he's doing it, because he still has that foot injury that's bothering him, and the ankle injury that he suffered at the end of the game too is having an effect on him as well. So that's why you don't see him bulldozing to the basket as much as he normally does. So that plays a factor right there. But like you mentioned, Lakeem, someone that has to step up. Lonnie Walker, the fourth, he had that great game in Game 4 against Golden State. We haven't heard too much from him since. And also, too, like I said, Jared Vanderbilt, he has to get out of that starting lineup. Head coach Darvin Ham for the Lakers, he has to change something, because this is it tonight. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, on the flip side for Denver, as I mentioned, Eric Gordon, they haven't needed him. Denver hasn't needed him yet in this series. I think he's due for a big game tonight if they want to close this out. But Michael Porter Jr., 4-10 from three-point range on Saturday night. He's been 4-10 for three-point range. He stepped it up. He had 14 points. And also, too, we talked about it on Friday with our guest Mateo Mayorga from Fire Recent Sports. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he had a big game on Saturday in Game 3. 17 points, including 6 of 10 shooting overall, 4-7 from downtown.
Absolutely. So, like I said, we'll see what happens tonight. I think as we go through the schedule for today, this week, just gonna keep it short here. But
Mhm.
of course, Game 4, we'll see if Denver can close it out. They'll be at 7:30 on ESPN, and we'll see if the Heat can close it out too against Boston in Game 4 of their Eastern Conference Finals. 7:30 on TNT tomorrow, and really like only if necessary. I mean, if Wednesday should the Lakers force a Game 5, that'll be at 7:30 on ESPN, and again, should the Celtics force a Game 5, it'll be at 7:30 on TNT. So, like I said, there's all be keeping it short and sweet, but it could be all if necessary games. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. You're listening to Second City Sports on the Monday edition right here on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live in the Color City. LaKenna here with you, hanging out with you, talking NBA. LaKenna, before we move on, we talked about the Miami Heat during our last break, and it's been a remarkable run for those guys down there at South Beach. But I know you're on Bulls Twitter way more than I am. I want to say this and get it out of my system now. I had this thought in my head this morning. I want to get it out of my system and clear for good. I don't want to hear people say that the Bulls are this close to reaching the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals just because they lost a close game, which are games they should have won in their playing tournament against the Heat. The Heat are a very good team. They're a very well-coached team. I'm not knocking Billy Donovan because I think he's a very good head coach as well, but we all know that the Bulls don't have the roster to compete with the Miami Heat. They're damn sure not a championship team. They're not even a playoff team like a year ago. So for those, I'm sure there's one or two of you idiots that think that the Bulls would have made it to at least the Eastern Conference Finals, what the Miami Heat are doing right now. I strongly disagree. Just get over yourselves.
I mean, well, who knows what would have happened if Jimmy had stayed? I think it might have been the best bet for him to leave. I think I don't think his game will develop as it is now. I think he needed a good coaching system there. And I think, look, I mean, he found one in Spoelstra. I know he had a couple other stops on the way, but I think he found a home in Miami. And look, we'll see what happens. But like I said, if they do make the finals, and should the Heat win, I think he probably should get the Finals MVP. Honors, but like I said, we're still ways to go from that, so we'll see what happens there. Listen to Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. LaKenna McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Now, some news that came across the wires earlier this morning, and about 8:30 Central Time here. Carmelo Anthony, the 6-time All NBA and 10-time All-Star, announced his retirement. You want to look at his video he posted on all his social media. I saw it on Twitter. It's about 90 seconds. It's a great kind of like his journey from his journey from New York City to played at Syracuse, win a national championship, his journey in the NBA, and I know his son Kai that he has with ex-wife Lala. And he's making weight. He's only, I think he's like 14 or 15. He's already making waves too on the basketball court as well. I've seen some of his games. So, but yeah, what do you think? What's your best moment from Mr. Anthony? And I think I'll get to the whole Hall of Fame stuff in a second. But go ahead. Tell us about tell everyone that what's your favorite moment and everything else.
Of course, during his freshman year in 2002-2003 in Syracuse, he led the Orange Men to the national title, giving legendary coach Jim Boeheim another national title, the first time in a long time. I believe since 1987 during that time. Remember, it was him and Dwayne Wade in that Final Four in New Orleans, along with Kirk Heinrich in the Kansas Jayhawks. We'll get to those other names in just a moment, which I want to go through that draft class with you and everybody else. But that's a top moment for me. And, of course, he won Rookie of the Year in 2004 over LeBron James as he helped the struggling Denver Nuggets franchise reach the playoffs. Of course, they lost to Kevin Garnett in the Minnesota Timberwolves in that first round. Because remember, Kevin Garnett, that was the last time he was in the playoff in the playoffs as a member of the Minnesota Timberwolves. We already got traded to Boston a few years later. We'll get to Kevin Garnett too. He made some news over the weekend. We'll get to that later. But as far as Carmelo Anthony's concerned, and winning the Rookie of the Year, of course, leading Syracuse as a freshman to their national championship, that stands out to me. And, of course, what he did in 2009 playoffs under head coach George Karl, and he had veteran point guard in Chauncey Billups. You had Kenyon Martin from New Jersey, who was acquired over there. And they gave that Lakers team a run in the Western Conference Finals before bowing out in 6. So that was the best you saw on Carmelo Anthony. Of course, you saw what he did in the Olympics during that time as well, giving the USA, I believe, 3 gold medals. So He's one of the best scorers in his era. You could say he's a poor man's James Worthy or a poor man's Dominique Wilkins. That they could score. He wasn't a great defender, but he could score with the best of them, and he will be a first ballot Hall of Fame. I know you have a little bit more on that, but he when in his prime, when he was healthy, even his first couple of years with the New York Knicks, no one could touch him. He could drive the ball to the basket. He definitely developed his outside shot. He was unbelievable when he got on the roll. So he's one of the best scorers of his era. He came in the same time as LeBron James, as I mentioned. So he's the first ballot Hall of Famer in my book. So salute to Carmelo Anthony on 19 great years in the NBA.
Yeah, I know people want to say that. Oh, yeah, he's only been to the conference finals maybe like once. He made the conference semifinals, couldn't get over the hump, and all that. But I know people say, oh, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Well, I mean, for everything he did at Syracuse, leading them to a national championship when he was a freshman, only he wasn't even 19 yet. Then he has 3 gold medals. That alone will get him in the first ballot Hall of Fame. People need to remember that this is not the NBA Hall of Fame. This is the Basketball Hall of Fame, and that stuff alone will get him in as a first ballot in about 5 years. So I think people need to kind of get over on that. Oh, whether he's not a first ballot Hall, blah blah blah. Some people say, oh, he should not have been in the top 75 greats in in NBA history. Look, he deserved to be on that list. So all y'all who want to say he shouldn't be on there, but I think considering his accomplishments, I just mentioned 6-time All NBA, 10-time All Star, 9th all time in scoring. I don't know what else can you say. I mean, of course, one Rookie of the Year in 04, but I don't know what else can you say about him. But look, I think the guy, he's doing what he does, and look, I know he's got a lot of business ventures. And I guess I know his son Kai is already making waves in the basketball universe. So it's sort of like it makes you feel old now. Of course, you see Bronny, he's going to USC, so you're feeling old now. You gotta remember that they were like little bitty babies, but now they're both making waves in hoops in their own right. But yeah, I mean, look, I think Carmelo has been. Look, I think Carmelo deserves all the credit. He deserves all of the flowers that he should be able to he should receive. And look, like I said, I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think we'll see what he does. What he do. I know. We'll see if he does television, and all that. But I think he's going to be fine. He's made about 180 million. I think his net worth is give or take. So it'll be interesting to see what he does next. But yeah, I think let's give him his due.
Yeah, too bad the Bulls couldn't do enough to sign and trade for him in the summer 2014. Of course, that was the summer when LeBron James came back to Cleveland. But that's another story for a whole nother time. Like, we talked about which is the best NBA draft class in basketball history. We talk about the 96 class, of course. We talk about the 84 draft class, of course, that included Sam Bowie, Hakeem Olajuwon, of course, the great Michael Jordan. But when we talk about the 2003 NBA draft class, in which Carmelo Anthony was a part of, we talk about the first 6 picks on that list. Of course, LeBron, Darko Milicic, who went to the Pistons and won a ring that year. Everybody thought that Joe Dumars was supposed to pick Carmelo Anthony. He didn't. He went with Darko. Of course, Carmelo went 3rd. Bosh followed after it. Dwayne Wade was picked 2 spots ahead of the Chicago Bulls. Of course, Chris Kaman went 6 to the Clippers, and of course, Kurt Heinrich number 7 to the Bulls. But there was some pretty good players that came out of this 03 draft class as well. I won't go through the whole list, but yeah, Nick Collinson, T.J. Ford, of course, Luke Rittenauer, Marcus Banks. Don't forget about David Rest, who had a very good career. He got a couple of rings with the Golden State Warriors. Sasha Pavlovich, he was a good role player for LeBron James on that first finals team that he carried to the finals back in 07 when they got swept by the Spurs. Of course, Boris Diaw had a very good NBA career. Of course, Brian Cook out of Illinois, he was drafted by the Lakers. And, of course, Kendrick Perkins, now ESPN commentator, he was picked later in that round by the Memphis Grizzlies. Remember these last 2 names, Lakina, that wrapped up the first round of that draft? Leandro Barbosa and Josh Howard.
Wonder where they're at these days. I mean, I think that whole class was pretty solid. Of course, you had guys that wore rings. They ended up wearing winning rings. Won gold medals and such. I mean, you had some duds and some misses, but look, it happens with every round. I mean, Troy Bell, I remember him from Boston College. That was he did turn out very well. Reese Gaines, I remember him from Louisville. I mean, that he went to Orlando. That didn't work out very well for him. I think he's still playing like in the G League somewhere. I think he might be playing in Europe. Dante Jones, of course, from Duke. I mean, it's like a lot of it. Boris Diaw, they had a pretty decent first few years in Atlanta. I mean, I think for me, I think that this class is definitely up there as one of the best. But Jason Capono, we all saw at UCLA, he had like various injuries and such. Unfortunately, Luke Walton, all the other stuff aside. So yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those those classes where I think was it the best? No, but I think look, you saw some really decent guys that come out of there, of course, other than Carmelo and LeBron, obviously. But it'll like I said, I mean, I'm sure they're going to do a special on this before this year's draft because it's been 20 years now. But
exactly,
but I'm sure it's going to be interesting to see. I'm sure some of those guys will probably talk about it and whatnot. But I think that class, they will probably maybe in the last 25 years, it's probably going to be up there. It's in a team picture, but I wouldn't say this is like the best class ever. I just don't see that.
But like you say, it's in a team picture, and I agree with you more. A few more of the role players that were in this 03 draft class in the second round: Mo Williams, Cal Korver, Willie Green, now head coach of New Orleans Pelicans, Zaza Pachulia, Keith Bogans, he was the starting two-guard on that 2011 Chicago Bulls team that which Derrick Rose won MVP and then lost in the conference finals to Miami. Matt Bonner, San Antonio famous. James Jones, he was selected by the Pacers, now the GM of the Phoenix Suns. And one more role player, you had Brandon Hunter of the Boston Celtics. He was around for a few years. So you have some really good players in both rounds making a big impact in the NBA. Of course, Steve Blake as well, who got drafted high in the second round.
Won a national championship with Maryland. But yeah, I mean, look, it's like I said, it's gonna be interesting. Like I said, I mean, like I said, this is gonna be probably one of the top draft classes. It's definitely like in the top 5 or the top 10. But as of being the best, ever, I don't think so, because there have been so many other, considering, some of them had their accomplishments and stuff. But yeah, it's it's up there, but it's in the team picture, but it's not there.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, right here. Live in a living color on the Monday. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. Lakina, let's do that hockey since we have a few minutes left before the break. Of course, the conference finals are taking place. We had another overtime game last night. The Las Vegas Golden Knights take out the Dallas Stars in Game 2, 3-2 in overtime.
Yeah, I think this has been like a theme for overtime games, I guess. But but in this case, it didn't. We didn't get like the 4 overtimes. We'll get to that game. 2 of that Florida Carolina series in a second. But it only took 1 overtime. It only took maybe about 2 minutes in. So it only took about a minute, a little over a minute and a half. Chandler Stevenson got that winner from Shea Teodorio. He had the assist there. But yeah, I mean, look, the Golden Knights, I think they're on a mission. I feel like I think they realize that this is their 4th trip to the conference finals, and they only been in existence for not even 10 years yet. And you got a lot of the veteran presence, guys like Stevenson and Jonathan Markov and Jack Eichel, of course. And I think these are kind of like the guys that are sort of trying to get it together. And look, we'll see. I mean, look, Dallas had their chances to put this game away, and they didn't. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, they were up 2-1, in the second period. They were able to get that game winner or that that goal. I mean, I think Mertzalt had that tying goal with less than 2.5 minutes left. So unfortunately, they weren't able to put it away. I'm talking about the Stars, but look, give the Knights credit. I think they're on a mission. I think they want to kind of prove to folks that we're in it to win at this time.
Yeah, Dallas had you mentioned had that chance. They actually led in shots on goal with the 28-24 margin, and they led in the face-off category with 33 face-offs to 27. But as we mentioned before, the Vegas Golden Knights, they can score with the best of them, but they're a physical team as well, and they had 31 hits to Dallas's 27 last night. So I thought that was key. And also too with the total penalties, I noticed in all these games the penalties are way down this year. Vegas had 3 penalties. Dallas only had 2. But you kind of got that feeling last night that Vegas had control of that game. As you mentioned, Dallas tied it late. But you can tell that Vegas had control at least 80% of that game, and the right team won last night.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think look, we just see if they go back to Dallas. So hopefully Dallas can kind of right the ship and get it going. So we'll see. I mean, I saw this game and I thought, well, wait, it was a 2.5 minute. Okay, not even a minute in, not even 90 seconds in. They won it. So
Yeah.
like, oh crap! I just turned to it. My goodness. But yeah, going back to that Carolina Florida matchup from game 2. Unfortunately, there was no 4 overtimes. It only took not even 90 seconds. Matthew Tkachuk, had the game winner, and he's actually the 3rd player in NHL history to score an OT goal each of the first 2 games of a playoff series. The second to do it on the road. The other person to do that was Maurice Richard, the Rocket, for the Canadiens back in the 1951 semifinals. So Tkachuk joins some elite company. I think his dad only did it once, I believe. So he's already ahead of his dad.
Mentioning his dad.
I know, right? Keith, Keith was a good player. And he's showing a lot of those same attributes. He's not. Keith always looks for a fight. Matt is more kind of even keel. So he's nothing like his dad. That he didn't want to. He said he doesn't want to be like that. His dad in that aspect. But but look, I think it's just like, again, say that happened in game 1. The Hurricanes had their chances to pull away from this, and they weren't able to do it, and it's still a game at home. And look, I think the Panthers are kind of like, they're kind of like, they'll hit you in the mouth, and they were kind of like slugging along, talking about the Hurricanes. I think that's probably why the Panthers were able to get the game winner again.
Yeah, the one key statistic that stood out to me from Saturday night's loss for Carolina: 0 for 3 on the power play, while Florida was 1 for 3 on the power play, which I thought was a huge difference in the game. And also, too, with the shots on goal, Carolina dominated by plus 12 margin, 38-26. But like you said, they had their chances. They just couldn't get in the back of the net. And partially give Sergei Grabowski, the starting goalie for the Florida Panthers, credit for that. We talked about him throughout these playoffs. He really has been standing on his head, and that's one of the reasons why Florida is at where they're at right now. And also, too, as far as total penalties, both teams had 4 with 8 minutes. Usually, you don't want to be that team that commits a dumb penalty, especially at the crucial time in the game in the playoffs, because everything is magnified times a million. And so the penalties were a little bit high, but like I mentioned, Carolina just could not take advantage. 0 for 3 on the power play. That's not going to get it done in the playoffs.
Yes, Trip Tracy, who does a great job over at Bally Sports. I think they call it this, Bally Sports South, I believe that's what they call it.
Southeast, yeah.
Southeast. Thank you. Does a great job doing the television analyst for the Hurricanes. I think he even said the same thing. He said, look, over 3 in the power play, you're not gonna win those types of games, especially a playoff game, especially when you're trying to even your series. So again, we'll see what Carolina's mindset is. I mean, they played tonight. You can catch game 3 of that series on TNT at 7:00. I will say this though, John Cooper, the coach for the Lightning, he actually was pretty good over there with Liam McHugh and then Biz and Gretzky. See, Gretzky, it's funny because Gretzky said that that he was actually about to take a nap, and Biz had to wake him up because Tkachuk had scored pretty quick, so it was actually pretty funny. But Cooper's actually pretty good on there, and he said, "Look, I'm not ready to do this just yet. But he actually has a second career if he decides to do it. But yeah, I thought it was really good on the studio there. But yeah, I think I'm hoping that Carolina can get it together tonight. I know Borowski, it's going to be tough, but he's been standing on his head. He's 34. He's been doing this, but I think Carolina's going to at least win 1 in Florida. I don't know if they're going to win both, but I think they will 1. They might win this one tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough task for the Carolina to win 2 in Florida. It's not. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but it's going to be tough given the way that Sergei Grabowski has been playing. Now, for some of you sports media critics out there, if John Cooper decided to hang it up right now, I know many of them want him to replace Wayne Gretzky on the TNT studio. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. But I'll say this for John Cooper. I know he was fired up. I saw a couple of clips of it. Part of that is he thinks that his team still should be playing, but thanks to the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's not happening this year. So that's right. He was extra fired up last night. So, but like I said, he sounded good in a couple of clips that I saw. And like I said, we'll see what happens with Tampa Bay next year. But as far as this Eastern Conference Finals series, I will say this: Carolina will take one of the next 2 games.
Yeah, I agree. And all right, after that on Tuesday, tomorrow, you got game 3 of Vegas and Dallas. The series goes to Dallas at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Do you think Dallas can? Well, okay, we won't say it might. It won't. It's not hard. They're going to be at home, unlike the Carolina has to go on the road trying to win too. They're going to be at home. I know that crowd's going to be the monsters. Dallas. Folks, they know their hockey. They have a couple of cups the Stars do. But do you think that the Stars can even the series against Vegas?
Call me crazy. I think they can. I really think that they can, but they got to start off hot. And I think tomorrow night, the first 10 minutes of the game is going to tell you what Dallas's energy level has been. It's not like they've been outplayed that much. Like I said, I know you got that feeling that Vegas controlled most of that game last night. Well, it looks like they haven't been dominated that much, and they've been in both of the first 2 games of that series. So for Dallas, they need to just get off to a strong start and set the tone. Like I said, the first 10 minutes of the first period tomorrow night, Tuesday, will tell the story of how this game is going to be dictated. But I'll be the odd one to step out. I think Dallas will win their 2 home games.
Like I said, they're in a different spot. Yes, they're up. They're down to 2-2, but they're coming home, so that should help them a little bit. So Wednesday's matchup, Carolina, Florida. We'll see where the series is at that point. 7 o'clock again on TNT on Wednesday. And you got, of course, Thursday, Vegas and Dallas. Game 4 of that series coming up on ESPN at 7 o'clock. So, and that is your schedule for this week in the NHL playoffs.
Last break coming up here on Second City Sports. The PGA Championship in golf has a new winner. It was too close for comfort for one veteran, but the one that was expected to win won. Lakina will give you an update on that. We had to do a tribute to the Pro Football Hall of Famer Jim Brown, and we'll have Old School TV Monday, and plus a whole lot more. I'm Sid the Kid. That's Lakina McGee. You're listening to Second City Sports, the Monday edition, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
All right, welcome back to Second City Sports. Can you hear me, Lakina?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I accidentally stepped on my headphones, but if I can hear you, you guys can hear me. It's okay. Glad I didn't yell out any obscenities. I'm glad our mics were muted during that break. But anywho, welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. This is our last segment of the day, right here on Sports Zone Chicago Live in Living Color. Sid Lakina here with you. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter and at Keenan McGee on the IG.
We're in the last less than 25 minutes left of this extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments in the comment section, you can do so by going to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comments section. McKenna will get them up on the screen for you. Peace and love to Brandon Schultz's family. I know he said in the comments that his grandpa just passed away. So myself and Lakina would like to send our condolences to you and your family, Brandon, on the passing of your grandfather. So all of us here at Second City Sports and Sports Zone Chicago would like to send our condolences to you and your family during this challenging time. Now, Lakina,
absolutely. I know he's been one of our biggest supporters. So keeping you guys in our thought, keeping you and your family in our thoughts, Brandon.
All right, let's do that golf. And Brooks Koepka wins his 5th major championship by winning the PGA Championship yesterday in Rochester, New York. He wins by 2 strokes. Lakina, I know you watched the majority of that tournament. He was dominating early on Sunday, but it came down too close to call. As I mentioned, he won by 2 strokes. Victor Hovland, I think Christine and Chris said on Friday that he may have a shot. He almost pulled it off yesterday, but Bruce Koepka hung on for the win, winning his 5th major overall.
Yeah, I'll get to Mr. Koepka in a second. Hovland, I mean, he's been the top 10 the last 3 majors. He was tied for 4th at the Masters a couple months ago, I should say. And look, I mean, Victor Hovland had his chances when it was kind of a constant, punch counter punch. I mean, he hit a big shot, but then Koepka, got a par saving hole. You thought that maybe he would, could win. Koepka, he had an early double bogey, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to capitalize on that because he hit a par. What killed him was, I'm talking about Mr. Hava, was that shot on 16, that bogey, when he was in the bunker, and and probably a golfer's worst nightmare. He hit the shot off the bunker, and it kind of hit like the edge of it, and it bounced back down. That kind of, and of course, Koepka was able actually had a birdie. Actually hit a birdie. So unfortunately for Hovland, that kind of did it for him. That shot at 16. So he double bogey. Koepka got the birdie. It was a 3-shot swing, and that kind of did it for Mr. Hovland. So I'm sure he will win. I think he will win this year. He still got the U.S. Open and the Open Championship. He actually did well in the Open Championship last year. So I'm interested to see how his mindset is now. Going back to Koepka, I mean, this is his fifth major court. I believe this is his 3rd PGA Championship, if I'm not mistaken. And I feel, and I feel like, and he loves playing in New York too. I mean, all 3, he won in 2018 at Shinnecock. That was the U.S. Open. He won at Bethpage. That was the PGA Championship. And then, of course, this one this year over Oak Hill. So, he's been, just been amazing. And he actually now joins Jack Nicklaus and Walter Hagen as the only players to win the PGA Championship for the 3rd time since 2018. Since 2018. So yes, that's 3 PGA Championships. He has 2 U.S. Open. So the guy's been good. Look, I know people say the live golf and all that, but look, this is a guy that had a very serious knee injury. Like his coach said that it could have been career ending. That's how bad that his knee injury was. He had to go to multiple surgeries. He had to go through rehab. Was gone for like over a year, and now he's been able to. He was in contention at the Masters. Of course, John Rahm held him off. Of course, once he got that lead on late Saturday, I should say, because it was raining and all that other They stopped playing for a little bit, then it started raining, and they actually went in to play through. Once he got the lead, he was going to let up. He was not going to give up that lead. So, that's how he was able to kind of get it going there. And to his credit, look, he's been great. And it's like he joins Tiger. Actually Brooks is actually the second time that he has finished runner up in the first major of the year, and then actually ends up winning the second major of the year. So he'd already done it twice. Now he did it in 2019. So yeah, you got to give him credit where credit is due. I'll get to probably the lead story of the championship in a second. But Sid, what did you think about Mr. Koepka's performance?
It was legendary. Like I mentioned before, it looked shaky for a while, but he did enough just to hang on. I just had this thought early this morning, getting prep for the show. For Koepka, I know unless you know something I don't know, he's never been known as the choker, unlike Phil Mickelson and some of the other golfers that have been in that position. They just couldn't put it away. But like you mentioned with Koepka, he's tied with Tiger Woods. Now we all know whether you love him or hate him. Tiger Woods, whenever he has a championship that's on the line, he doesn't just win it. He puts the nail in the coffin, and that's what Brooks Koepka did yesterday. And I'm sure for Koepka, he doesn't be known as this generation's Phil Mickelson. I know Phil Mickelson has a Masters title and a couple others now, but when he was coming up, he was known as the choke artist. I know Brooks didn't want to be known for that yesterday, especially having a big lead like that yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I know people, of course, live golf. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he defended his decision to go to live golf tour was because he didn't think he could play a full PGA schedule. We know how long the PGA schedule is, tour schedule is, and live is a little bit lighter. So that's probably one of the reasons why he went with live. Political stuff aside, but yeah, I think he's showing you why that. Look, he's a pretty good golfer. So that was pretty interesting there. And look, and John Rahm. No, go ahead, Sid. No,
I just want to ask real quick. What does this do for Live Golf going forward? Now you've seen their golfers winning these PGA major championships. Do you think it's going to change anything soon? I'm not saying things are going to change tomorrow when we wake up, but do you think we're starting to see the small steps of some change with the PGA Tour, or we'll just have to wait and see what else develops if more Live golfers win these big tournaments?
Well, if they would stop, doing the Heidi thing, cutting off their final rounds, midway through a playoff. I mean, I think they did a couple weeks ago in Tulsa. That probably would. You have a bad TV contract with the CW, especially when most of the CW affiliates, the CBS affiliates, are kind of cutting away from that. So maybe they'll work on your television contracts there. We'll get to that in a second because there was some other stuff too. But yeah, look, John Rahm tied for 50th at 7 over. Didn't have his best showing, but he actually showed he's actually a pretty good analyst too. He actually did a little bit of analyst work for a little bit for CBS. I'm sure he doesn't want to do it like right now. I mean, he wants to wait like 20, 25, or even 30 years. He'll show you playing the Champions Tour.
Yeah.
But he was actually pretty good, for the 20 minutes he did it. So that was really nice of him. But Michael Block, the name doesn't sound familiar. He is a tour professional. He's a teacher in Temecula, California. And of course, the way it works, they like the top 80, I think, they start the PGA Championship is mostly professionals and such. He took the crowd by storm. I know SVP during the first round, they talked with him. I thought, this is a pretty cool guy, great personality, very pleasant. Got a lot of charisma. He actually shot 71, which was actually a really solid, and it was tied for 15th. He wins about 580 grand. That's probably the most. He only charges 125 for his lesson. So that's definitely gonna. And he's got one son that's about to go to college and another son that's not too far behind. So that should help definitely.
Yeah.
His wife.
A little bit over $500,000. Yeah, that's not a bad piece of change at all.
Yeah, his wife Val is very she keeps his his ego in check. I think he's gonna be just fine. He's not gonna get too big headed, but the crowd was very Tiger-esque. I mean, he hit a hole in one on 16. He was playing with Rory. He kept Rory gave him a hug. He didn't know why Rory was hugging him. But he took it though. But then it wasn't until he got back. His caddy told him that look, you hit a hole in one, and he was just you saw it was very Tiger-esque. I mean, it was he took it in and such. Just a great story. He's going to be playing the Charles Schwab championship coming up this weekend. So a great story there. And I know the Kepka story, I know, I know people are don't want to talk about that, but Michael Block, I mean, this could be a guy that you might be looking out for in these next few weeks.
Yeah, like I said, with the Tigers' health in question right now, no, he's at home recovering from his last injury. But golf needs some new faces, especially some new young faces. So who is it going to be? We'll just have to wait and see who's going to be that Tiger. It's not necessarily the next Tiger Woods, but who's going to be that figure that transcends golf that's going to get the casual fan to watch more than just when you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Michael's been making the rounds and such the morning shows, and and you saw the club in Temecula, California. Everyone was cheering and such. I know his son's been a little bit under the weather. Actually, it was actually his best friend. I think his oldest son. I think he's been a little bit under the weather. That's why he couldn't go with his with his mom, and his dad to Oak Hill, but his best friend actually sent him that shot at that country club, and it was just a sweet moment too all around. A great story, for golf. And like I said, will he win a major? No, but he will be playing in next year's PGA Championship. The top 15. So you gotta give him props.
All right, you listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. See Lakeem here with you, hanging out on the Monday during our last break of the show for today, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. This just breaking within the last, I believe, hour or so, according to our good friends that's all for announcing. I'll just read the headline, Lakina. You can give your commentary if you know anything about this. But ESPN is expected to launch a full direct-to-consumer offering in 2025 or 2026. Consumers could perhaps buy access to ESPN's main linear feed over the top as early as 2025, which is 2 years from now for those of you scoring at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they're going to do that. I know some people said could Disney spin off ESPN and whatnot. I mean, we'll see how the product is going to look. I mean, does that mean that they're going to offer Disney Plus to subscribers and whatnot? Again, we'll see. I know Bob Iger, who's the CEO at Disney, I know that he's been very quiet about what they're going to be doing. So, it'll be interesting to see what they do here, and I think we'll be interested to see how will the product look. I mean, the direct, for people who don't know what the heck does that mean, direct to consumer. Basically, we're not. This is CNBC, so we're not going to try, but it'll be interesting to see direct consumer, which basically means that they're going to have to actually have give consumers options to kind of get to that point. I know that Andrew Marchand first to report said and it's hard to kind of try to read it when they're but then it's going to be interesting to see how will ESPN look, and that's going to be kind of like the thing here. Will there's already talk of layoffs, and this is going to be interesting to see how will the product look in a couple of years. So this is going to be interesting, and so will it be offered as a separate entity? Will it be kind of on their own? So that's going to be the thing that's going to be the $1 million question here.
And don't forget too, ESPN is preparing to negotiate with the NBA when the NBA's national TV deal ends after the 2024-25 season. So they're getting prepared for that as well.
So yeah, so basically what it said, Disney Plus has over 25 million subscribers. So it'll be interesting to see, you guys see NBA will probably be in that platform, and so will Monday Night Football. So basically, it's not, we'll see what happens with that, but I think that maybe be prepared of how they're going to be able to package this. So we'll see.
All right, you listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. See Lakina hanging out here with you on the Monday. We have a few minutes left before we get to Old School TV Monday. This news actually broke after we got off the air on Friday. Of course, we're talking about James Nathaniel Brown, a.k.a. Jim Brown, the Pro Football Hall of Famer. He passed away last Friday at the age of 87. He was an American football running back, civil rights activist, and actor. He played for the Cleveland Browns of the National Football League from 1957 through 1965. He's considered to be one of the greatest running backs of all time, as well as one of the greatest players in NFL history. Brown was a Pro Bowl invitee every season he was in the league. He was recognized as an Associated Press NFL's most valuable player 3 times and won an NFL championship with the Cleveland Browns in 1964. He led the league in rushing in 8 out of his 9 seasons played. And by the time he retired, he held most of the rushing records in the NFL. In 2002, he was named by the Sporting News as the greatest professional player football player ever. Lakina, we talked about this before we went on live today. Of course, I know some people are trying to bring up his past, and if he was playing in today's society, especially with social media dominating our world today, he would have been canceled. Of course, he has some issues with domestic violence and whatnot, but he cleaned up his ad. He did. He's best known as far as our generation is concerned, Lakina. He's best known. We know, of course, we didn't watch him play. We saw him on highlight tapes, but he's best known for doing work in the community, especially in the African American community, in working with kids, getting them out of gangs, setting them up with jobs, and helping them troubled youth and getting them back on the right path. His impact was made more in doing that than he did. No disrespect to his football career, he was a great athlete, no doubt, but his greatest impact on what he did off the field. Of course, he was part of that Black Athlete Summit in Cleveland, I believe it was in 1965-66. Of course, Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, was part of that as well. The late Bill Russell now was part of that. So his greatest impact, in my opinion, was more what he did off the field than what he did on it.
Yeah, did some great activism work and such. So, and look, I think I know people want to. I know I saw some of our friends kind of bring up, well, look, he did this and this and this. They don't. I mean, look, I think no one's perfect, and I think you can kind of have to separate the playing field from off the field.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure we said it before we started doing this. I mean, make sure your nose is clean and your pass is clean before you start throwing stones at someone else. So I think people need to kind of just chill on that. Not to say that it's not part of his legacy, but I think to have it say, oh well, he did this and this and this. Oh, okay, we're not. We get it, but we're talking about his stuff on the field and perhaps maybe activist work. So I think people need to kind of just build on that. Now he lettered 4 sports while he was at Syracuse: football, lacrosse, basketball, and track. And it's kind of interesting that he was a place kicker during one game against Colgate back in '56. I mean, some of the other things that he's done, I mean, like on the field is amazing. And look, we saw Walter Payton break his rushing record. He had 8 rushing titles, 5 straight, both all time still. Was inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1971. I mean, look, his attributes are his physical, accomplishments, his athletic accomplishments are, totally, all that. So the stuff with the domestic violence, I think, look, yeah, you can mention it, but to me, that's not what we're talking about here. And I think people need to kind of just separate that. I know people are just so quick to cancel folks like, oh, this guy said this, or this person did that. I mean, I think people need to just take a chill pill and just say, look, they're not perfect. We're not going to put these people on a pedestal. Like I said, make sure your family stuff is clean before you start throwing stuff at somebody else, and and just leave it at that. But I mean, I can separate the playing, Jim Brown from the other stuff, but I don't know how you feel about it, Sid, but yeah, that's kind of how my mindset is.
Yeah, I agree with you with 9 out of 90% of that as well. And I know some people can't separate that, but he did more good than bad, and he impacted people's lives. And is that what you want people to do with that kind of platform? He did just that. I remember him not just as an activist, but also he did great in Hollywood too. That's one of the reasons why he quit football as well, because he was making an impact in Hollywood as well. And one of the first movies that I saw growing up, I know we're telling our ages, but I'll speak for myself. Blockbuster Video. This movie came out, I believe, in 1995, 1996. Remember the original Gangsters with him, Fred the Hammer Williamson, Pam Grier, and the actor, what's his name, Christopher Duncan. He played Broham on the Jamie Foxx show. He was in it as well as the rival, play one of the rival gangs. And then Jim Brown, his crew, Fred Hammer Williamson, Pam Grier, went to take his game out. That was one of the first movies that I saw Jim Brown in. I knew who he was by that point, but you could tell that he was a very good actor. I'm not saying he was like Denzel Washington or anything like that, but you could tell that with his demeanor and his presence, he made a big impact in the world of Hollywood as well.
Yeah, absolutely, all around. So we salute the late great all-time great Jim Brown here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Now is that time set for Old School TV Monday. Where are we going this week?
I think this is Call me crazy, but perfect timing. But we're going to do this out of fun, out of respect as well. Let's go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and pay a visit to the First Community Church. Yes, I'm talking about the NBC sitcom Amen. I think you remember that one, right, Lakina?
I can't say the theme song, but
yeah, same here. Same here. For those of you that want to check it out, go to YouTube. Amen is an American sitcom that was produced by Carson Productions that aired on NBC from 1986 to May of 1991. Set in Sherman Hemsley's real-life hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Amen starred Hemsley as Deacon Ernest Fry of a church that was part of a wave of successful sitcoms on NBC in the 1980s and early 1990s that featured primarily a black cast. Of the other shows were The Cosby Show, Different World, and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in 227. The premise of the show was resolved around Ernest Fry, a widower deacon of the First Community Church in Philadelphia, who also worked as a lawyer. He was often dishonest and frequently got into trouble with many of his harebrained schemes. Fry had a single daughter named Thelma. Reuben Gregory is the new young pastor of the church, played by Clifton Davis, and also the object of Thelma's affection. The two get married during season 4, despite the fact that Gregory Fry often butted heads. In the series finale, Thelma gave birth to the couple's first child.
Yeah, it was a great ending for that series. You probably could say they could have wished they could have maybe added another season, but I think the cat. I know Sherman Hemsley said this years ago. I think that they were ready to end things and and all that. So yeah, I think everyone was ready to move on. So it was one of those shows that it just great kind of gave you that side to the church and whatnot. So I thought that was a really cool way to kind of salute to that. But look, I mean, it was it was part of that Saturday night lineup for I think the last 4 years, I think, on NBC. This was actually back when like all networks actually cared about Saturday night scripted shows. I mean, way back when. So, we talked about it earlier, but I think look, it was a hilarious show. The premise was funny. I think it kind of gave folks sort of like a not a good impression of Deacon, but Deacons, but it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, look, it was great. I love the cast. The cast was was terrific. You had Roz Roy, you had Barbara Montgomery, who played the sisters, and I think Barbara left. I think after the 4th season, I want to say.
Yes, she did.
And Roz Ryan, I think that was kind of like a missing element there. But are they both? I think they're both still with us, aren't they? I thought.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, I mean, it's sort of like Clifton Davis, came from Broadway. He did a lot of theater stuff. Of course, That's My Mama back in the 70s. But this is like actually I'm not that old, folks, but I know but he struck gold here with him and he and Sherman had a nice rapport, so they did butt heads a lot. Of course, Reuben Gregory kind of moved in, and such. You saw in the pilot, and the Deacon, they kind of butted heads a lot. It was hilarious, but Jester Harrison, who of course we all know from, of course he played Miss Mama Winslow's husband on the show on Family Matters too. I think she too actually made a few appearances on the show as well.
The late Rosetta Lenore. Yeah, she did it for a couple of seasons. Yep.
Right, and also of course, Harris, I think played Raleigh, who was just hilarious. But I think Bubba Robinson had a recurring role as Clarence. Of course,
yes, he did.
The Trouble Youth, of course. That's pretty much it for like some of that's sort of like the main cast and crew. I mean, like it was actually a top 20 series. I think it was like it was top 30, which was still a big deal. Back then, of course, people started getting cable and such, but it was hilarious. I mean, they talked about stuff with the choir competitions. Those are pretty funny episodes, and some of the others. Anna Maria Horsford's done a lot of other television shows since Amen ended. But yeah, I mean, look, it's still, you can still stream it. It's on Cozy TV if you have that.
Yes, it's on at 2:00 a.m. Chicago time.
Yeah, but I think it's streaming on what's it streaming on? Good grief. Give me a second here. I think it's streaming on hold on, kids. I know on Amazon Prime, I think it's streaming on there. I think it might be streaming on Pluto TV. I'm not sure, but But yeah, it's still I think. Oh yeah, it's on Pluto TV. As I think it's part of that black comments that black sitcom. I think like channel that they have on Pluto Television. But yeah, I mean, look, a lot of the episodes are on YouTube. So if you don't have access to either one of those, they're on YouTube. But yeah, it was good, clean, fun. It was a great sitcom, and I loved every minute of it. So I thought it was great.
Yeah, so I didn't appreciate those episodes until they were in reruns in the 90s. My late mother, she was, no pun intended, she was very religious watching that show. I knew who Sherman Hemsley was at that time. And when I was little, when that series first aired on NBC, the only thing I loved about that show, I'm not saying I hated the rest of it because it wasn't true, but I love that open, and
yes,
I love that open because you didn't see it open like that to any sitcom like that. You haven't seen any open like that for a sitcom ever since. I know they don't do sitcoms like that anymore, but when he came out of his car, a reserved spot for the Deacon, and he went and did the jumping rope with the kids, and then the double dutch with the kids, and then he greeted his members, and then he did the George Jefferson strut inside the church, and then they had the aerial shot, except for the pilot episode. All the other episodes, they had the aerial shot of that church in Philadelphia. Yes. And then, like you said, that theme song, I had to listen to it again about like 5-6 times last night. I said that theme song gets you fired up, and the opening theme was "Shine on Me" by Vanessa Bell Armstrong. Call me crazy, Lakina, but she kind of sounds like the late great Vesta Williams on that. If Vesta would have done that, woo.
I think that charted. I think too that song did. I think it charted. I think in the top 40, or at least in the top like 100. So I think it made a Billboard 100. So actually, it was a pretty memorable theme song. And look, I mean, even if you were more a big church person, which I'm not, but I guess. But yeah, I think it made you like, okay, yeah, it's pretty funny that this happens kind of behind the scenes at the inner city church. It was actually pretty funny, but it is what it is. I mean, look, they did cover various issues and such, but they kept it mostly like all sitcoms. They kept it fun, they kept it light, and not trying to rip off the laugh. So it was actually pretty fun.
It ran for 5 seasons with a total of 110 episodes, and some of the guest stars, including Cuba Gooding Jr., MC Hammer as the bootlegger preacher, and the late great James Brown doing that episode when they was trying to raise money for the church. Now James Brown did lip sync that song, but that dancing he did was for real. You can catch that clip on YouTube.
Right, exactly. You can catch that episode too on YouTube. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, you can catch it on Amazon Prime. It's on Cozy TV. I know I think it's on Pluto TV too. I believe I've seen it on there. I know I have. So yeah, I think look, it was like I said, a good deal sitcom. Like I said, if you're not a big, if you're not very religious, you'll like the sitcom. Make sure you guys check that out. And it's just I remember that episode with MC Hammer. That was actually pretty funny. Actually played his hit song. Not You Can't Touch Me. I think it was another song that he played at the end of the
I think it was Pray. Yeah. That
Pray.
Yeah, he's sitting the remix of that song, he sampled that from Prince's When Doves Cry. That version I liked. And of course, if you remember that music video, that was very impactful as well. The message he was trying to carry out at that time. So we salute our old school TV Monday, the 1980s NBC sitcom Amen. Lakina closes out.
You follow Makina McGee on the Twitter and Akina McGee on IG.
Shout out to you, Lamont Scott. We saw your comments in the chat. Thank you also for supporting us all the way. You can follow yours truly, Cindy Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We're available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And give War Media a follow at WARR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
And don't forget, you can catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. You can catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And you can catch Sports on Chicago and Second City Sports anytime you want on Roku TV. Just go to Roku TV on your app or on your Play Store on Roku TV. Just type in Sports on Chicago. It's all right there for you. Our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas. What's up, cuz? We just see what Vernon and Jason are going to be up to tonight. I know they're going to be talking on NBA, so definitely check them out tonight at 6 or anytime you want on Roku TV.
Yeah, like Keenan, I think I'll be like Commissioner Adam Silver. Of course, the NBA Finals will start next Thursday. It looks like we won't have any live basketball for Memorial Day weekend. I guess I'll pull out my old DVDs and search for old games here on YouTube because that's all I'll be doing for the next week or so.
Oh yeah, pretty much. Yeah, look, I've been watching old NBA Finals. I actually been watching some Stanley Cup Finals too. I mean, I'm on 1984, the start where the Oilers played the Islanders. They're ending their dynasty, and their dynasty beginning with a very young Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, Marty McSorley. Well, not McSorley wasn't on that team yet, but I know
Great Fuhrer. Yes.
But he did that game clinch. He did that start. Arthur Moog started that.
Yeah,
game.
That's right. Yeah,
remember? Yeah. So I'm on that now. But yeah, I've been through all the. I skipped most of the Montreal Canadiens ones. I feel like the last 3. There's so many. But yeah, the 78 Canadiens against the Bruins. You remember the Eastern Conference Finals. You remember too many men on the ice. Remember that? Oh, the late great Don Cherry. boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before he was actually wearing like muted clothes, normal.
Yeah. The White Morris Day.
Pretty much, but yeah, that's what I'm looking at too. So yeah, so maybe. So I watch all the NBA finals, so you guys can check that out on YouTube. It's all right there.
All right, Lakina, we out.
All right. Okay. First, Sid, I'm Lakina. Enjoy the weather. No, don't do anything stupid, folks. Wash your hands and be good to each other. This is Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. We'll see you Friday.
Shine on me. Holla.